Welcome back to Master Surveillant Mindset. Darin Fredickson, Kevin Hunter, and Kyle Torgerson here on Northwest Digital News. And we're going to talk today about if you're being followed, how to figure it out, how to know if you're being followed, and what to do about it if you determine that, in fact, you are being followed. And, you know, Darin, this is a great subject for you because you're actually a professional follower, if you want to call it that.
I am.
You follow people all the time. So, you've got some great tips here. Where do you want to start?
So like you mentioned, I've been following people for so many years that I know when one of my subjects pulls a maneuver on me, whether it's innocent in their mind, like they just decide to make a U-turn or pull over because they're lost, to me it creates a challenge because I'm trying to maintain surveillance on this person. So there's literally like 12 to 15 different techniques. They're called counter surveillance moves that you can do to detect a surveillant, but I want to give you the top 3 that really can throw me off my game, which you can use to find out if you are actually being followed. In the industry,
because in your case, you're following somebody who's a known and or suspected criminal up to bad activities, but this information is pertinent to our viewing audience because if in fact they're being followed home by somebody or whatever, this is going to help them determine that if somebody actually is following them, and then some appropriate actions to take if they make a determination that they are being followed. And I want to make sure, before you get into the details, because we had a little conversation about this off air, I want to make sure that those who just tuned into the thing right now, a couple of stops that you shouldn't be making if you think you're being followed: don't go to the police station, don't go to the fire station. That's the most common advice given by people out there. And with most police stations and fire stations, nobody's home. So you're going to a empty, dark building, and I can tell you, even where our broadcast studio is, we're across the street from the police station. I've actually walked over there on occasion to have conversation with somebody. Nobody ever is there. So anyhow, I just want to make sure that was covered with people.
Absolutely, they're not staffed, and people that don't realize that are out there giving advice think, oh, you know, the first place you would go is to a police station. Well, no, that's actually probably one of the last places. Actually, the last place you want to go is to your house or your home, because if somebody's following you, you do not want them to know where you live. So you may ask yourself, like, why would I be followed? Like, for what reason? There's a lot of reasons why you could be a target of surveillance. It could be a private investigator because you're going through some child custody issues, a divorce. Maybe you're not doing your job, or you have an injury, insurance claim, comprehensive. There's a lot of reasons why a PI might follow you to get intelligence on what's going on with you. Or it could be the police. If you're a bad person and you're committing crimes, guess what? Police could be following you. And of course, that's where I spend 95% of my time is following criminals. Or it could be a predator like we've talked about, or it could be a criminal that's following you home to rob you. And over the last 10 years or so, or even 20 years, one of the most common reasons why people are being followed is because you've slighted a driver, you've pulled in front of them, you upset somebody on the roadway, and now they're going to follow you to give you a piece of their mind or a piece of something else. And so road rage has really come up as one of the top reasons why people are being followed. So as a habit, you just want to know if you're being followed, especially when you're arriving home. And I got in this habit years and years ago when I was a drug enforcement investigator, and I would go to leave crime scenes where we were doing search warrants for drug dealers. Or if I was at a police station, we found out that criminals were actually doing surveillance on police stations, either to follow police home to see where they lived, or to identify undercover investigators like myself. And so when we would leave a police station, a lot of our police stations and where I worked, there's parks around it, and they would wait and follow. And so once we realized that they were doing that, it just really amped up things with us and made us realize that, like, we are also targets of surveillance. And so that's when we do counter surveillance. So as you're approaching your home, as a habit, just see who's following you into your neighborhood, because you may have slighted a driver or done something that you didn't even realize, and you don't want to take that person home with you. So the 3 most common surveillance techniques that I find the most challenging when they're pulled on me is when somebody pulls over on the side of the road. So if you think, boy, that car is back there, it's been with me for a little bit, I wonder if they're following me or not. And some people are really paranoid and they think people are following them. and that's just something they have to deal with. But pull over on the side of the road, or if it's on a freeway, just and a car's been with you for a while, pull over on the side of the freeway. I don't recommend freeways just because there's a lot of fast moving vehicles there. But let's say you're on a side road, just pull over and stop and see if the car goes past you and just kind of disappears. And then you know usually whether that car was following you or not, because if they disappear, then it was just all in your mind. If it's a team and that car disappears, there's probably a rest of a team like I worked on that is setting up on you to do surveillance. And that's just more sophisticated.
Mm-hmm.
And that's if the police are following you. And I'm talking more about somebody that can cause you harm or is looking for another reason to follow you. Another one that is one of the most challenging for me is when somebody pulls a U-turn on me.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot when they start doing U-turns, if they do more than one U-turn, then I know they're probably trying to detect if I'm following them or not. And but sometimes people are just lost and they make a U-turn. But either way, if you make a U-turn and you see anybody make any action to either make a U-turn with you, or they pull over right away because they have to get in position to follow you, that's a really, really good way to find out if somebody's following you. So U-turns are excellent.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, do it when it's safe. Don't just pull a U-turn when it's not in a safe area to do that. The number one, and this is probably one of the top reasons or the top methods that's the most challenging, and I teach surveillance to federal, state, and local. I've done it for many years. And when we do our live surveillance training in the field, this is the one maneuver that most investigators hate to do, and that's following a car into a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're on a main path of a main thoroughfare and there's a lot of cars, it's real easy for a surveillant to blend in with all those other vehicles on the roadway because it's a main thoroughfare and everybody's going in one direction. But as soon as a car pulls off into a neighborhood, they've just eliminated all of the cars on that thoroughfare, and now they're isolating into a neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the best ways to see if somebody's following you is pull into a neighborhood, and not like a main thoroughfare into a neighborhood. Pull into a little side street, see if a car comes with you. If a car doesn't come with you, then just weave through the neighborhood and continue on your way. If a car does come into that neighborhood with you, make 2 left turns or 2 right turns, and basically in effect you're turning to where you're coming back in the direction that you came from.
Mm-hmm.
If that car is staying with you, they're most likely following you.
Mm-hmm.
If they are following you, what we want to do is, let me go right to my notes here so I don't leave anything out. As soon as you think you're being followed, get on the phone and call 911. Don't try to call the non-emergency number. If somebody's following you, there's a reason you need to call 911. It's an active live situation. Call 911. They're going to say, what are you driving? Who are you? What does the person look like if you can see them? What kind of vehicle are they in? Where are you at? So those are all the questions they're going to ask you. Most likely they're going to keep you on the phone line until police arrive and pull that person over. Again, don't drive home. And when you're on the phone with 911, you're probably going to be just like a little bit nervous, probably a lot nervous. And so you're probably going to just be driving aimlessly because you're paying attention to the dispatcher and you're paying attention to who's following you and you're trying to provide live updates. But just drive. If anything, if you're in more of a desolate area, start driving to where there's more of a public presence.
Mm-hmm.
If you do end up driving somewhere and you end up where you need to stop, just stay in your vehicle. Don't get out of your vehicle. Don't get off the phone. And when I follow people, there's 3 things they usually do when they discover they're being followed. They either try to ditch me, then they know they're being followed, so they show me what they want me to see. Mm-hmm. Or the third thing is a confrontation where they'll actually confront me. Why are you following me? Mm-hmm. And so you want to have police pull this person over eventually. Why? To find out why they're following you. Is it just, you want to know? Because if let's say you ditch them, which wouldn't probably be that hard, now you're always going to wonder, well, like, why was that person following me? And all of a sudden, maybe they will pick up on you at a later point and start following you. So you want the police to pull them over and find out why you're being followed. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. The people that contact me and think they're being followed, I've had some people that are paranoid that think they're being tracked with GPS trackers and things, and there are ways to locate a tracker on your vehicle, which we could cover in another show, I suppose. But mainly you want to find out, are you being paranoid, or is there somebody really following you?
Mm-hmm.
So look at your lifestyle. Are you going through a divorce? Are you going through custody issues? Are you a criminal? Hopefully not. But there's reasons why people may choose to follow you.
Mm-hmm. When you were mentioning about keeping the dispatch on the phone and giving them a status as to like where you're at and all that kind of good stuff, one of the things that I think about that, and maybe some of this just comes from some of my military background and military training, you're always like thinking these steps ahead. So one of the additional pieces of advice that I would give somebody in that situation is that if you're in a remote area and you're going, hey, wait a minute, I should go to the mall, or I should go to or head in that direction. Well, then give that information to the dispatch and say, I'm heading in this direction. My target destination is the shopping mall. I'll be there in roughly 10 minutes. If they're going to send out a police officer to intercept you and the person that's coming, well, at least give them a clue as to where you're going. And
Sure.
Part of the reason that I even thought about that is that there was a situation, this was actually years ago, but there was a situation where a very reckless driver, a guy who knows what he was on, but I was in the far left lane, driving at least the speed limit and a lot of other traffic, and this person came up, went out on the shoulder, blew by me, probably exceeding my own speed by like 20 miles an hour, and then weaving all over the place, continues on down the road ahead of me, and I elected to speed up and maintain some safe distance, but contact with that vehicle. So this was not a situation of me being followed, but I was following this person because I immediately called the state patrol or the 911 dispatch and said, hey, here's the situation. This guy needs to be stopped. But I was giving mile mark updates on where I was at on the road, and I gave them, because I was familiar with the area, I said, this is the area he should be in 5 minutes, this is the area he should be in 10 minutes, and they actually shot a state patrol car like 10 minutes ahead of us and had a squad car just waiting for him then when he came by. And so the officer was able to observe this erratic behavior himself and everything else. But one of the things the dispatch commented to me afterwards on the phone was, thanks for the really thorough descriptions and stuff like that. It made it really easy to connect with you guys. And so that's what I would just add, is that not only tell them where you're at, but if you got a destination in mind, let them know where you're going. And so they can either put somebody on your spot or elect to intercept you down the road, but that can all be really helpful.
Sure. No, those are excellent points. It's all about being safe and then being aware. The criminals I follow, they're a lot more vigilant, and so they're looking for surveillance often. Sometimes they're not. They're just so comfortable. But normal citizens don't realize that, they can be a target too. And it's not real hard to pick up on it as long as you know what to look for and you're paying attention.
Very good. Well, all good tips, great information as always, Darin. If you miss this at the top and you think somebody's following you, don't go hang out at the police station and the fire station. Nobody will be home. And the number one piece of advice here is don't go to your house. Don't lead the bad guy to your place. All right, well, thanks everybody who joined us here on this broadcast. Darin Fredickson, our Master Surveillant, Kevin Hunter here at the desk, and of course, Kyle Torgerson. Kyle, get us out of here.
This concludes today's live programming on Northwest Digital News. Thanks for joining us for this special broadcast. Heard around the world in more than 70 countries on YouTube, Instagram, Patreon, Facebook, and Twitch TV. If you enjoyed a story or guest we had here on Northwest Digital News and would like to strut your stuff on the broadcast, email us today at wainfo2017@gmail.com or call or text to 360-545-3501. We're always interested in unique stories, topics, and guests to share with our worldwide audience. Before you go, don't forget to give us a big thumbs up and comment on the live stream. And for those of you who'd like to financially support the broadcast, you can do so at patreon.com/Northwest Digital News. We thank you for your patronage. On behalf of Chris Bornstead, Kyle Torgerson, Stephanie Hunter, and all the people that made this broadcast possible, I'm Kevin Hunter. Till next time, take care.